Okay, so it should be live here. Yeah, so today's going to be fantastic. So we're going to be doing a Q&A. So this is a question and answer. Yeah, we're just going to be covering some questions here. Pretty straightforward. Some questions regarding flipping houses, real estate, how to buy houses, how to sell houses, how to, how to sell houses, how to buy houses, how to run your numbers, contractors, money, deals, all that good stuff. So we're going to be covering that today. So I have some questions here. I'm just going to be answering. Easy, pretty straightforward, nothing much to cover, pretty straightforward. So if you're watching, we always do this. So if you're watching on the live, comment #live. If you're in the Facebook group, if you're on the replay, comment #replay. And that way, the Facebook algorithm is going to pick it up, and then it's going to create more engagement. More people will see it. More people benefit from this good stuff. Yeah, so always. And if you have any questions, drop them down below in the Facebook comments, and I'll answer them. And yeah, we'll just pretty much go from there. And I have some pre questions here I'm going to answer. And if any questions come in live, I'll answer those afterwards. So appreciate everyone joining here. But yeah, #live, and #replay. So let's get into it. So someone was asking, like, do you need homeowners insurance? So let's talk about what that is first. So Ricky says #live. Thanks so much, Ricky. Thanks for hopping on. So do you need, so homeowners insurance, do you need it? And then where do you get it? So homeowners insurance, yes, you do need it. So what it is, basically, it's like insurance on the property. Let's say something happens in terms of like a flood, in terms of theft, in terms of damage to the property in any way, shape, or form. What this does is it just protects you. And typically you have some sort of deductible, and then they'll protect you for some amount. And the deductible is saying like, hey, there's some amount out of pocket you have to pay to get the insurance. So let's say it's a $10,000 damage. Let's say there's some sort of flooding, and there's it's $10,000 worth of damage. And let's say your deductible is $1,000. Well, you have to pay $1,000 out of pocket, and the insurance is going to cover the rest. So the question is, like, do you need homeowners insurance? I would say yes, absolutely yes. You just never know what's going to happen, and you just want to be protected in the downside. It's definitely worth it. And homeowners insurance, anywhere from $1,000 a year to $2,000 a year. It's going to be dependent on the property, on like, is it a flood zone or not? It's going to be dependent on how old the house is. There's a lot of different factors, but it's going to be covering all those different things there. So you just want to make sure you're covered. I had a property here recently. This is actually back in December. So in December, I had a rental property. The tenants were moving out. I was going to fix it up and sell it and flip it. And actually, the property caught fire, so it had fire damage. So thank goodness I had property insurance, or else I would have been stuck with that bill. And it was like 70 grand or 90 grand to do the fire damage restoration. We're still working through that process, but it's just been a pain in the butt. So if I had to pay that out of pocket, that would have been devastating. So it's much better to not have to deal with any of that and just be like, okay, insurance is going to cover it. And that's what insurance did in that case, which is really nice. So I didn't have to pay anything. The deductible is minimal. So things like that happen all the time. It's that's why you get insurance, because these things are unforeseen. So because these things are unforeseen, that's why you want to make sure you're covered, because you never know, even if it's a 1% chance. And that's what I'm finding out as you do more deals, which is usually the goal for a lot of people. Like, you want to do more and more deals, like do more deals more consistently. Like even if something's a 1% chance of happening, and you do 100 deals, like, that's going to happen. Like, by probability, it's going to happen. So if you do like one deal in your life, it's likely not to affect you. So you want to cover yourself on those risks, even if it's a small percentage chance. So highly recommend on the insurance. Where do you get it? So it is going to be state by state. So I'm here in Florida, obviously, Gainesville, Florida. I'm a fix and flip right in Gainesville, Florida, as you guys might know. But that's typically where you would get it. It's state by state. So I have one here that works for Florida. I think they do Florida, and that's it. But some other states go to other states. I have students I had a student asking me about the insurance today, and they're out of like the Virginia area, and they have a deal in that specific area. So they were asking about that. So you're gonna have to call around. Like a Google search is gonna get you really far. The title company is probably gonna know some insurance companies as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's what homeowners insurance is, if you need it, and then where to get it. So I just called around. For mine, I use the same insurance provider over and over again, and I'm very happy with them. But I had to, this is the second one I used. The first one I used had a lot of issues. They were hard to deal with, hard to work with. That's a long story. The second one, they're fantastic. Everything's done on time, when it's needed, which is exciting. So there's that. Okay. I was also asked, so like, hey, whenever you have a fence and it's kind of not in great shape, like, should you rip it out or should you keep it? I think the interesting thing about fences, I'm assuming it's like a wood fence. Especially you get a lot of these like wood fences on these properties. If it's like sturdy and it's in good shape, I would keep it, and you can pressure wash it. And if you keep it and pressure wash it, you're going to save a lot of money. It might be like $100, $200, but it's going to look close to new, which is really good. If it's like kind of falling over and that sort of thing, I would rip it out and just either replace it or just keep it empty. Especially with the market being so hot nowadays, like if it's a good property, like a buyer's going to jump on it, and they can make their own personal improvements. Like, hey, I'm going to build this like little garden. I'm going to, build this fence, and like they want to make sure that the house is good and solid, and they can add to it as they would, because they're the homeowners. So if it's in good shape, I'd rip it, I'd keep it and pressure wash it. If it's in bad shape, I'd rip it out and maybe do a new fence. That's how I typically think about fencing. But when it comes to fencing, like it's rarely like the piece that's going to actually like sell the property. Like I've never heard someone say like, oh, we were on the fence. We weren't sure about the property. Then we saw the fence, and then we knew we had to buy the house. Like I haven't heard that one before. I've heard like kitchen, I've heard bathroom, I've heard, flooring, paint, or layout, or neighborhood. I've never heard someone say like, oh, I didn't know I was going to buy the house. Then I saw the fence and I was sold. So that doesn't happen, right? So as much as possible, like when you're flipping, whatever you don't spend is profit. So whatever you save is profit. So you want to, obviously don't cut corners, but you want to save as much as possible, just so there's no issues like that. So yeah, and you can always, like, if the buyer, if they send you an offer and say, hey, we're going to pay this specific price and we want you to put in a fence, like that's a different discussion. Okay, I did a post yesterday about subject to. So what is subject to, and how does it work, and why would you use it, that sort of thing. So I want to cover that again in some more depth. So subject to is basically subject to the existing mortgage. It's basically a shortening of that phrase, subject to the existing mortgage. Basically what happens is you're buying a property. So you buy a property, you take title, you take ownership, but the mortgage, which is like the loan of the property, stays in the previous owner's name. So they would keep it in their name, and then you could add, you'd take over payments, you would take over everything, you take over utilities, because you actually own the place, but the mortgage just stays in their name. So that's it's legal, you can do that. Mortgage companies typically don't care as long as you make payments on their behalf. Like as long as they're making payments, like they don't really care, to be honest. Like, so mortgage companies, like, as long as you're current, like if you can imagine, like if you lent money to a friend, just to give it another example here, let's say you lent money to a friend, and for some reason that friend couldn't pay anymore, and then another friend stepped in. Let's say the friend's mom stepped in and started paying on their behalf. I don't think you'd really care that much. You'd be like, oh, well, hey, wait a second, you can't make that payment on his behalf. That's not who you are. So it's just one of those things. Like it just doesn't affect it that much. So as long as you're making the payments, then you're good. So that's what a subject to is. So that's you're buying the house subject to the existing mortgage. So why is that helpful? Because then you have to put less cash out to buy the property. So let's say you're going to buy a property for $100,000 and there's a $90,000 mortgage on it, and you have to do whatever repairs. So to buy it traditionally, you have to buy it and come up with $100,000 cash, and that can come from a number of sources. But if you were to do subject to, you basically just have to pay the difference. So in this example, it's 100 minus 90. So you just have to come up with 10,000 cash, and then whatever repairs, all that stuff. But it just limits like your money into a deal. So that's where it becomes pretty exciting. So limits your money into a deal. So it's good because then like if the deal's tighter, like if you're less money into the deal, like your ROI is higher, like your return on investment is higher. So that's basically what we're trying to do always as investors. Like let's put the minimal in and get the most out of it. That's all we're doing. You know, if you put in, let's say as a random example, so you put in $1 into an investment and made $1 million, you'd be a lot more excited about that versus putting $1 million into an investment and making another $1 million. So that's kind of the idea. So the less you put into something, the more you make is more exciting. So that's why you should do a subject to. So I've done that a couple times. It is a little more advanced. Like if you can pull it off for your first deal, great. But it's not necessary. It's just a little more advanced. But I want you guys to have like all these tools in your tool belt. I had that happen on a deal recently where it just wasn't going to be a deal traditionally because the numbers were too tight. But as soon as like I was able to do subject to, like it turned into a deal, and we made 30K net on that property. So it's pretty exciting. That's what a subject to is. So someone was asking, so I had a property I'm selling, it's listed on the market, should I accept a contingent sale? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what that means. So contingent sale is, so let's say you're going to sell a property, and a buyer, like you own the property, you want to sell it, a buyer walks up to you and say, hey, I want to buy it, but I need to sell my house first, and then once that sells, then I can buy yours. That's basically what a contingent sale is, saying like, yes, I want to buy your property, but I need to sell mine first, because then I can get the money, or I'll be loosened up in terms of a loan, or like there's a lot of different factors to it. So that's what a contingent sale is. So it's like saying, hey, contingent on me selling my house, I'm going to buy yours. So that's what it is. Should I do it? It's going to depend. Typically in this market, just because it is such a hot market and folks talk about that all the time, it's typically best not to do a contingent sale, because like what was my latest listing? Like I did a listing, I sold a property here about a month ago, and I think within 3 days, like we had 4 or 5 offers. So when that's the case, like it doesn't really make sense to like, hey, why would I take a contingent sale? Because there's the risk of like, what if it falls, like their house doesn't sell or it falls out of contract or whatever. There's that risk. And then you're like, okay, well now what? You got to relist it and you're delayed. So especially with the market being so hot, I would recommend against it, just because like you don't have to. You can just wait a day, you'll get another offer. As the market starts to cool down, I mean, I'm sure that'll become a little more commonplace, but I would just exercise patience when it comes to that. If you have a problematic property, that's a different story. So, okay, great. Well, that's all the questions I have. We have Alejandra here, #live, Alex, #live, Pierre, #live, Rex says, great topic. Thanks so much, Rex. Appreciate the kind words. That's all I have for today. Pretty straightforward one. Just a quick Q&A here. And if you guys ever have questions, feel free to reach out and I can make sure to answer it on these Q&As. Question and answer. Again, it's here to help you. It's here to answer your flipping questions. I didn't mention this, but my background is I'm a full-time fix and flipper out of Gainesville, Florida. I focus on my local area. So I did about 20 flips last year, 30 flips this year is the goal. And I flip full time. I also mentor people on how to get started flipping, and that's pretty much it. So I just help people because this is what I do. This is what I do full time. So I'm literally in the trenches making this happen. I just make it happen for myself and for others, and it's exciting. It's a great time in real estate. Some people say, well, it's such a hot market, I need to wait to get started. And now those are going to be the same people who are going to say, oh, the market's too cold, I can't get started. And then like there's that Goldilocks where it's like, oh, I can't, it's too hot, it's too cold. Like I just need to wait for one perfect, the perfect time. And that perfect time is going to be like 1 month. It's going to be like, oh, no, it's off balance now. So those people are unfortunately the ones who never like succeed because they're always waiting. That's not because they're waiting for the true time, like they're investment experts and they're specialists and they're masters, just waiting to time the market perfectly. It's typically fear holding them back. They don't want to lose money on their first deal. They don't want to, like, what if something goes wrong? Like, what if, I go over budget on my renovation? So there's all these different like pieces of fear holding them back, instead of taking action. So I just want to leave you guys with that tidbit there. Rex asks, have you done any sub twos? I have. I've done like 3, 4. I haven't done a lot of them, but I've done them. It's a great tool in the tool belt. You know, I have done one. I sold one recently. That was a 30K deal. The one before that one was a 20K net deal or 18K net, which is, I wouldn't turn that down. I've done subject to. I think the thing with subject to is like the seller has to be open to it, because when you're dealing with like a normal seller, like they want to sell the house and be done with it. Like sell the house and be done with it. Okay, cool. No problem. But with a subject to, they're kind of on the hook. Like you're taking care of payments, you're doing all that good stuff, but like they're technically still on the hook. Like if you stop making payments, then it affects their credit, affects them. And not all sellers are open to it. There are a percentage that are, and you can make it happen with them. But that's just how I like to think about that. Cool. We'll wrap it up there, guys, but very much appreciate it. Thanks.